Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the morning meeting on the two-way video platform. Thank you for joining. We create authentic conversations, authentic communities around peace, love, and understanding, and conversations of all sorts. This one happens to be about politics and government. And I said this morning, if you watched the morning meeting, that the president had no public events. And so probably the bulk of the news would be made by the vice president, who spoke to a security meeting in Washington, or by White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Iron rule of American politics. If Donald Trump goes on Hugh Hewitt, news will be committed. And boy, that it was. He did like a 30-minute interview with Hugh Hewitt. And I mean, we could spend the whole show just playing you clips from Donald Trump talking to Hugh Hewitt today. But that's not exactly how things go. So we'll play some of that. There's some personnel news. There's some economic news. Uh, and something happened that I've been really curious about. Which is, why have there not been student protests against the universities caving to the Trump administration or threatening to cave to the Trump administration? I have a parallel lack of understanding of why there haven't been mass resignations from Amazon and Facebook as their CEOs have cozied up to the president. Because for years, these CEOs, just like the CEOs and publishers of the Washington Post and the New York Times, have been so terrified of their woke employees that they've let the inmates run the asylum. I use that metaphor in a non-pejorative way. Uh, these Silicon Valley CEOs were terrified of their employees and let them, basically say you can't do anything that's not liberal. And yet Harvard and Columbia and other universities are making deals with the devil, with Trump, or discussing it. And I would have thought there would have been protests. Well, today there were at least one school, and we will talk about that. Our guests are here, two excellent people who've been here before: Brian Wolff, a Democratic strategist, and Emma Jo Morris, my friend, who I'm told to call a conservative commentator. So we'll call her that. And I'll bring them in just a second after I tell you a little bit more of the news, and then we'll look at some videos together. And then, believe it or not, tonight we're going to take your questions. We go from one way to two way. And so if you'd like to ask a question and you're here on the two way platform, please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or YouTube, watch. And if all of a sudden you want to say something, you want to express yourself, and you say, well, I can't raise my hand because I'm not on a two way platform. Maybe I'll put something in the chat. Before you type, ask yourself, would Mark consider this smack? Would Mark consider this smack? For me, smack is like pornography. You know it when you see it, as a Supreme Court justice once said. If you think I might think it's smack, don't put it in the chat. That's a simple rule. Err on the side of no smack. Simple. All right. Brian Wolff and Emma Jo will be here in a moment. But first, President today did a switcheroony, got rid of his previous Surgeon General nominee and nominated Casey Means. Callie Means was here recently, Casey's brother. Casey Means is a stalwart of the MAHA movement, and the president said she would be nominated to be Attorney General. Here is Casey Means, number two, Sam.
Elements computer is frozen.
All right.
I'll tell you as soon as they're unfrozen.
Got it. Thank you for that. No, I saw something about frozen in my text,
All right,
and I thought
I've
maybe
got number two if you're ready for
All
it.
right. Thank you, Sam. I saw something about frozen. I thought it had to do with a dessert or something. So let's play number two, please. This is Casey Means, Donald Trump's new nominee to be Surgeon General.
So more than a health epidemic, which is what we have in this country, I mean, health is getting destroyed in the United States, which we don't really talk about because it's not profitable to heal in this country. It's profitable to keep people sick and then drug them, cut them, and bill them, which is what we learn how to do. And really what we have here is a disconnection crisis. And the healthcare crisis is one branch of that tree. We're disconnecting the body into 100 separate parts and not seeing as a unified system. And we're disconnecting the body from the environmental conversation, which actually we're really one and the same. We are totally connected to nature, and in destroying nature through the pesticides and the way we're treating animals, our health is a reflection of what we're doing to the earth.
All right. I wasn't going to bring Emma Jo and Brian in, but the MAHA thing just inspired me because I want to ask you both about it, and I figure now's the time. Emma Jo, welcome in. Thank you for joining. conservative commentator that you are. And
Thank
Brian
you.
Wolff.
Yeah,
Brian,
I'm just gonna say I'm gonna just talk smack for 1 second. I don't know who told you
exactly.
that title. That I'm not a conservative commentator.
I know you're really not. What should we call you?
A consultant,
A
a former
consultant? A
media
consultant?
clerk.
Yeah, former media what? Clerk?
Yeah.
Yeah. Emma Jo wrote for the New York Post. She worked at Fox News, and now she works for what's it called Beck and Stein.
Beck and Stone.
Beck and Stone. Beck and Stone. She's a consultant at the firm Beck and Stone, and she knows a lot about a lot. And Brian Wolff worked. Who'd you work for besides Nancy Pelosi? I can never remember.
Oh, Rahm Emanuel.
Rahm Emanuel. Those are two toughies.
Two toughies. And
I have to tell you. Yeah.
one you're going to hear.
I'll say. Yeah. I will say that they had an interesting relationship because there were some things they agreed upon tactically and strategically, and sometimes they disagreed. And when they disagreed, woo, you would not want to be having to referee the fights between them. But Rahm was a very successful chair of the DCCC, and that's pretty much a high priority for the gentle lady from San Francisco.
We took back the House under his leadership. So there's some things you just turn away from and shut.
Yeah. I want to ask you each a question about MAHA because I'm an unabashed supporter of the principles of MAHA. I won't say I'm a cheerleader for, everything related to MAHA, but getting better food for our kids and standing up to big food and more public education about health. I mean, I don't know who could be against that. So, Emma Jo, start with you. Donald Trump was not some big public health, fitness, nutrition candidate and until Bobby Kennedy came on the scene. And I mean, I've never gone back systematically and looked, but I don't remember seeing a single MAGA tweet or MAGA, Steve Bannon podcast about this. And yet now I find that the MAHA people are including Bobby Kennedy, are amongst the most popular people in MAGA. So if you were doing your first draft of history, where did this come from? Why is MAGA so into using big government power to stand up to private sector companies? How did that happen?
Well, okay. The first thing that I just want to say is, well, okay, let me answer your question and then I'll address something that you said that I just kind of like shivered a little bit as it came out of your mouth because okay. First of all, there's MAGA in terms of the political policy, the official policy of MAGA, and that, has a lot of focus on immigration, obviously, it has a lot of focus on trade, economic policy, whatever. And that's like, the official things that Trump has campaigned on and the official reasons why we vote for him. But then you have the kind of cultural MAGA, which is similar. Obviously, it has the same policy goals, but also has other things that are included in it. And I think that's where MAHA meets MAGA. Trump himself obviously doesn't talk about bench pressing and eating organic, but there is a cultural movement inside the right that is, yes, very focused on physical health, very focused on aesthetics. And that comes from a willingness to, I guess, have some sort of agency. Like that's how it's seen. It speaks to like aesthetic desires, and it also speaks to personal agency. There's a belief on the right that, again, this is cultural, this isn't official, but I'm just telling you how it be. People feel like they're being controlled by big corporations, by big food companies, by putting poison in the food, this big embrace of marijuana. And it's like fake health. And not only is it fake health, but it can
fake health?
Fake health.
Why is it fake?
The health establishment.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Got it.
It's a rejection of the health establishment and simultaneously a reclaiming of personal sovereignty and personal agency. And in terms of what you just said, like I just have to call that out for 2 seconds. Big government. No, that is not, MAGA does not shy away from using the government for its political goals, obviously. And I think Trump shows that over and over again, and he never gets any pushback from his conservative base because ultimately I think conservatism has moved away from a philosophy of live and let live and much more toward a philosophy of no, the government is not shrinking. That's never going to happen. We've been trying to shrink the government for 20, 30, 40 years. It's not happening. So if that's not happening, the left is using government levers toward their own ends, and we should probably use them toward our ends, because it's a fantasy to think that we're ever going to shrink the government. So let's use it to make society more conservative, to pursue conservative policy goals.
Okay. That's a good first draft. I think you could use some refinement, but we'll work on that together. Brian, I'm going to give you a hypothetical. No, I was serious. It was a good first draft. You made a lot of points that I hadn't thought of. I'm going to be a hypothetical. You're called to a meeting and you walk in, and here's who's in the room: Kamala Harris, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Governor Bashir, Governor Shapiro, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton. And they say, Brian, we've looked at a lot of polling data here from Jeff Pollock and Stan Greenberg, and it's clear that the Republicans are making inroads with a lot of suburban moms and others talking about MAHA. And we've been virtually silent on it. We think we need a plan to not let the Republicans help get a political realignment through these issues. Brian, what's our plan? What would you tell them?
Well, I think you have to really go in aggressively, and I don't think the Democrats have necessarily, Emma, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I don't think the Democrats have necessarily done anything right now aggressively. They're focusing off of talking points and a little bit more rhetorical in nature, rather than kind of being a little bit more campaignish every day. So I think there's that, but
you mean on everything, not just on MAHA?
On everything, but I think MAHA, what I would tell them to do is like, look, stick with the crazy that brought you MAHA. RFK Jr. was the one that symbolized MAHA to begin with. And I agree with Emma, I like aspects of MAHA because it really does talk about what's wrong with the whole entire business case of healthcare. So what's interesting, Mark, and I wanted to say this to you last time I was on, but really what's interesting is, and I won't mention the congressperson that said this, but, just like healthcare in this country and the way that you go about doing it, and Casey actually had some really good points in what she was bringing up about the way it currently works. And what's the problem is that the Democrats have is I don't really think anybody can disagree with that. And what a member of Congress said was, we cannot go out and defend these institutions as they are.
Yeah.
That, by the way, is the point. So you can't go, because the American people feel this every day with regards to healthcare, United Health, just, and what they currently dealt with, and they continue to deal with, which has become now a systemic problem at the insurance company. So we also have to think about what the American people are experiencing. And I would just have to say that they're onto something. And I think that unless you really attach it negatively to RFK Jr. and talk about the crazy aspects of it, but agree with other aspects of reform, I think that's probably the way to go. And, again, develop more of a campaign mentality every day instead of these rhetorical talking points that are really just softball. I think that's where it is. But again, MAHA, I don't know if anyone in this country right now thinks that their healthcare is great. That they have a great experience with healthcare insurance companies, the entire ecosystem of healthcare. So remember that point, because it is true we cannot defend any of these government institutions as they are, which is more broadly the American people. When you start slashing these agencies, they haven't really been pushing back and saying this hurts me or this hurts my family, or it's largely where we've come to question their effectiveness to begin with. And I think Democrats really initially, they just bear down on the fact that there are cuts being made, as opposed to strategically saying, what should we reform? That's where the conversation lives, and that's where their campaign talk should come from.
Yeah, I agree with that. Emma, anything you want to say about that before we move on?
Yeah, I just, not that I'm a Democratic strategist, but there was something that you just said that, Brian, that I just kind of stuck with me for a second, and it was the crazy parts, quote unquote crazy parts. And I think that if a Democrat were to try to attack MAHA or try to maybe pull people off of MAGA via MAHA, that would be the worst possible thing you could ever say. And would, I think, pull exactly 0 people because I don't even really like, I mean, what's crazy? Like, what was crazy? I mean, I think, like, you know, and I am personally actually super MAHA, and I consider myself one of those moms, you know, because I think it's crazy that the health establishment told us that we had to, first of all, lock children into their homes for over a year for a virus that there was really no effect on them at all, let alone a lethal effect on them. I think it's crazy to ask us to put like vaccines into a 2-year-old. I think it's crazy what we put in our food and what we're expected to feed our children. Even organic food it's also garbage. And it's and the things that the health establishment and the nutrition establishment have normalized over the years, we're all kind of now waking up and saying, wait, this is actually not only not true, it's actually dangerous in some cases. I think that trying to peg MAHA or RFK as a conspiracy theorist isn't going to work, and it's not fair. And not only is it not fair, but it's not fair to also the millions of people, especially moms, who are super concerned and feel super in the woods about what to do with their children and how to keep their children healthy in you know, when they're in a position where they don't feel like they can trust the authorities.
Look, I think the American people are waking up every day to crazy. And it's coming out of 1600 Pennsylvania. So I don't think there's a shortage of that. But what I will say is crazy was the comment you just made from a person who lost a family member to COVID. I would just tell you, like, think about that, because it's like the extremist out there in your party that really think that. It was everybody else that was thinking about, what do we do to keep our family safe? And for something that my family experienced, and that was the death of a family member, a close family member, it's like we were at a loss for, how much longer for a vaccine, because, you feel it that much more intently. But
I'm so sorry for your loss. First of all, I'm very sorry for that. And I'm praying for you. I'm so sorry. And second of all, I wasn't commenting on COVID or the lethality of COVID. I was talking about its threat to children and the fact that we were told that children had to stay inside their homes when there wasn't any data to show that it was a threat to children. It was a threat to the elderly. It was a threat to people with comorbidities. I'm not denying that. I'm also not criticizing the vaccine. Maybe the mandates I would have a problem with, but the vaccine, of course not. My parents took it. They needed it. They're in their 70s. I don't want to be misunderstood on that. I was criticizing quote unquote experts who said that 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds had to stay inside and severely damage their mental health, severely set back their education, and miss out on milestones in their lives.
Well, we could agree to disagree. My family member was 8 years old, so we could agree to disagree with that, and we can move on.
Sure. Sorry. Okay. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Brian, I did not know that. I'm very sorry too, obviously. And look, I think no one's really adequately, I think, grappled with that time. And I think I'm a little bit more forgiving than some people are about choices that governors and the federal government made under both the Biden and Trump administration, because people were operating in an absence of complete information. I think that I have great understanding for, obviously, for your situation, anybody who lost a loved one, but I also do for the people who feel that the government went way overboard in restricting individual liberty at a time, and economic activity at a time when there was more information that did suggest that there were ways to open up more of the society. But I'm less judgmental than some about the whole thing, just because there was imperfect information. I remember when we all spent a ton of time wiping off our groceries when we brought them back from the store, and there's just no indication that was a good use of anybody's time, but everybody did it because we didn't know. Okay, I want to run through some other stuff. I want to get to the Trump sound from the Hugh Hewitt interview, but a few other things. The Fed didn't change interest rates today. as expected, Scott Bessent was on Capitol Hill. And there's tons from it, very combative with the Democrats. I think the Democrats thought that it would be a good idea to try to rough him up and take some of the shine off of him. I'll show you a couple of exchanges. This is Scott Bessent with Representative Velasquez asking about trade negotiations. Number 7, please.
Specifically, which countries are you close to striking deals with?
I'm sorry, Congresswoman, but that would not benefit the United States.
No. I'm asking you a question based on the statement that you made on CNBC.
And I am telling you that it would be detrimental to the interest of the United States for me to answer that question.
Why will that be detrimental?
Because as the negotiations may still be in process as we speak, as we are not at the end of the week yet, I am sure that you through your question, would not want to compromise U.S. negotiating.
Reclaiming my time.
Would you?
Secretary Bessent, the president goes into a press conference and claims that there are negotiations going on. And then the next day, there's no negotiations going on. So why would you not answer my question? And that will be considered detrimental to the American people, to the American economy. I do not understand. Despite your claim...
I'm happy to say there are negotiations going on. I'm not going to reveal the details.
No filibuster. No filibuster here.
So how long do you think those negotiations will take before they are concluded?
There are numerous countries, as I have said, if you saw my CNBC interview, which you referenced, that there are 18 important trading partners, and we are moving forward at all deliberate speed with those.
I'm the world's biggest critic of members of Congress of both parties who grandstand at hearings rather than try to do the people's business. Here is Congresswoman Presley, number 8, thinking she can outfox the Fox-like Treasury Secretary.
Yes or no? Mr. Secretary, do you know what a car seat is?
I have 2 children, yes.
Do you know what a car seat is? Brian, as you look at the leadership of the Treasury Secretary, how would you appraise how he's doing, not in a political way, but on behalf of the American people?
Well, look, I think it's a challenging situation to be in right now, to be between the Treasury Department, President Trump, and also you have to look at the Fed. And I think that Powell coming out and making a comment today, what I would ask some of your listeners today and viewers here with us tonight is I would say, look up the word stagflation. You know, that is you're going to be hearing a lot about that in the coming weeks, months, could even be years. But you do have we already have a contraction of the economy. You know, that's really the stagnation part of it. But you really do have to think about the coming inflation that they talk about with the tariffs. And a lot of that is already starting to happen. If you look at the data today of ships coming into American ports, has completely decreased in the last 45 days just on the uncertainty. So you know countries are reacting to that. And by the way, so are American companies that buy those goods. They're reacting to that. So, you know, I think it's something we're, you know, looking at a little bit further. I think the Treasury Secretary has a huge job. This comment that was made by Congresswoman Velasquez, I thought was my point of being utterly ridiculous. That's ridiculous to be able to ask the secretary about specific negotiations. And anybody who has been a little bit closer to government at all knows that that wouldn't be smart. And it's not someplace, it may look like a I got you moment to maybe some of the American people. I think any of us that have half a brain know that that is like not a smart thing to be able to point out and say it's actually a waste of time.
Waste of time. That's what it is.
I totally agree with Brian. Can I just say, like, that was so funny. I'm like still laughing about it. How long has it been? Like 2 minutes since you played that clip? Like, that was so stupid. It was so obviously stupid. I'm sorry to use that like word, but it's just it feels naive and inexperienced that she was pressing so hard on that. And like the truth is, like, it's so disappointing because I find that this economic policy is quite experimental. It's quite exotic. It's not something that we've ever seen, at least not recently. And in the current economic conditions and with the current level of debt. And, I think that there's genuine and sincere and fascinating questions to ask the Treasury Secretary, who's obviously partly leading this experiment. And it's a shame that they aren't being asked, because I think people on the right and the left would love to know more about what the policy is, what the plan is, addressing like obvious things that we're all wondering about. Are prices going to spike? How are we going to avoid that? Have you had conversations with CEOs? Have you had conversations with manufacturers? You know what I mean? Like there's so many valid questions that are sincere and honest and get to the bottom of something and reveal something fascinating and interesting about what they're doing. And instead she's like trying to like put him on the spot for like Twitter. It's just...
I will say, and some people may criticize me for this, but sometimes you got to say what is as opposed to what ought to be. Really, the number one way to become a MAGA hero is to have a very public fight in which you arguably come out on top with a woman of color who's a liberal. I mean, that just MAGA eats that up. MAGA eats that up.
I don't know the race
MAGA
and the sex of the person.
Sorry.
Libs, sure, but
no, better. I'm telling you, for a lot of people in MAGA, better to own a lib who's a female of color. Just a reality. I'm a Joe.
Never heard that.
But who actually is the ranking chair of these committees that are not having discussions with their members about content and substance?
They never do. They never do.
They never do. And it's just
both parties.
Yeah, both parties. But I'm just saying this one example.
Yeah,
it's something I would have said. We are not bringing things up that are obviously wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
They're defective in nature as far as an argument. And it's absolutely, I don't understand why there's not a little bit more discipline and why there's just not a little bit more accountability to that.
Yeah, I agree.
And by the way, why can't you be just more organized? Just be more organized. We know we're having
They never do. The only two members of Congress I've ever covered who knew how to do this were John Dingell and Henry Waxman.
Yep.
And they're literally the only two. Every other member in both parties, for some reason, doesn't seem very hard. All right, there's a million things I want to get to, and I also want to get to your question. So here's what we're going to do. Sometimes in the video business, you just got to play good video. So I'm going to play a couple pieces of good video. Then we're going to listen to some Trump on Hugh Hewitt, which we've heard none of. And then, and only then, will we bring you in. But hopefully that will be before too long. First, I want to play, I mentioned it earlier, number 15. This is protesters at Columbia University who are anti-Israel. I believe that's the right way to characterize them. After 9/11, I asked everyone I was talking to in law enforcement and Homeland Security, why is someone not putting a stick of dynamite in a Nebraska mall? I didn't understand it. It just seemed so obvious. One stick of dynamite in a Nebraska mall would have destabilized America even more. And again, I've been asking, why are there no protests at Columbia and Harvard? Well, there were today during exams. This is, I haven't seen this yet, but it looks good on paper. Number 16. This is a Secret Service pushing a guy away who got too close to Jared and Ivanka at Carbone in Miami. You guys ever been to Carbone in Miami?
I've been to one in New York.
Okay, the one in Miami is like, it's like the set of Scarface. Beautiful room, good food too. I recommend it. Here they are. The only time I've been to Carbone, it was at a dinner for like 200 people, including Jared and Ivanka, but I wasn't sitting with them. But here they are leaving Carbone. Is that it? Is that the pushing?
Keep watching.
Okay, thank you. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. The lesson there. Order the pasta with red sauce and do not get too close to the Kushners as they depart the restaurant. Ooh, I've seen a lot of Secret Service interaction with citizens. That was quite something. Wow. Was that last night?
I believe so.
All right. All right. Ton to discuss. Play with Donald Trump. So here we go. I'm just going to play a bunch of it and then we'll talk about it. Play number 20, please. This is Donald Trump with Hugh Hewitt today at a 30-minute interview.
Political establishment. You broke it. You broke their system. You broke their credentialing. Can they ever reassemble that? Are they ever going to put Humpty Dumpty back together again where you got to go through this gate and then that gate? I mean, you came from the sideline in sort of at the 50 and won. Can they ever put it back together again?
So I use a phrase over the last few months because I've been watching them very closely. They've lost their confidence. Guys like David Brooks, who are supposed to be like Republicans, they're not Republicans. They're bad guys. The other character that's writing for the New York Times, they call him the Republican. He's not a Republican. He's just a flunky for the New York Times. And these people have lost their confidence because they lose all the time. And we have a movement the likes of which nobody's ever seen. You know it better than anybody. You cover it as well as anybody. And
well, it's a realignment.
Make America great. The MAGA movement. It's make America great again. It's very simple.
It's a realignment, but realignments sometimes fail. Richard Nixon had a realignment going in 1972. It all fell apart. Can you keep this one going? It usually means moving to the center, not moving to the right. If you want to realign, you got to take the center and hold it. Can you do that?
Well, I think so. I've never seen spirit like we have. You know, you mentioned the speech in Alabama, and the place was packed with big arena. They've never had a crowd like that. And it was, University of Alabama, incredible people, by the way. The whole place, everybody was beautiful. It was like the most wonderful looking arena, both the arena itself and the people. And no, we have a great country. We have some people that are sick. Frankly, they have just, I don't know, there's something wrong with them. And you talk about Trump derangement syndrome, it probably makes them even crazier.
No, it does. But you won 7 swing states.
And they've lost their confidence totally.
You won 7 swing states. Can another Republican pull that off? Because 7 for 7 is the inside straight on 7-card poker. It's just not done.
I won all 7. Yeah, it was. I felt I was going to win all 7. Yeah, I campaigned in all 7. Every arena was packed. We were doing great everywhere. That was, we ran that last 3-month period. You figure 90 days, but that last 3 to 4 month period, that was a flawless campaign. We were just running flawlessly.
All right, play 21 and then 22. 21, the president attacks Congresswoman Crockett.
Put her, and we didn't know, was she good, was she bad? Nobody knew too much about her. Most people didn't know the name Harris, right? They knew Kamala, they didn't know Harris, but she got up and she turned out to be a total disaster for them. But I'm telling you, they're just, if you look at their, hey, we have a big bench. We have a beautiful bench with a lot of very talented people. Look at the people they have. They have somebody named Crockett. And somebody was telling me she's the future of the party. Oh. And I figured, this will be good. I look forward to watching her. And I watched her. She's a low IQ person. Very low IQ.
AOC is the future of the party, and she has charisma. Do you think she can win? Do you think she's going to be their nominee in 28?
I think you're right about the charisma. I don't know about her speaking ability. I don't know about her debating ability. I don't know how she is, in an interview, because you rarely see her being interviewed. Rarely. And that's a bad thing, because usually that means something.
Well, the left is out of its mind.
The real question is he going to be challenged by AOC?
Talking about Schumer now.
Be challenged by somebody else? Because I think he's pretty weakened right now.
I think she can be their nominee for president if she wants. I don't know. Maybe Josh Shapiro can beat her. I don't think so. I think she's unstoppable because of her charisma and because of the left wing sort of lurch of the Democratic Party.
I just don't know about her speaking ability, and I don't know about her. She still has to answer questions, and I haven't seen that yet. She goes on very rarely. You don't see it. And Kamala was a disaster with answering questions. Before that, she was doing all right. And then when she started opening her mouth, she started losing rapidly, really rapidly. So I don't know. And I don't know about her speaking ability. You have to be able to speak in front of large crowds. Her voice is a little different. I don't say it's bad, but it's a little squeaky. And as a squeaky voice, I'm not sure that sells, but we'll see.
All right, there's a giant buffet there, Emma Jo, which you can comment on, but I want to make this point. I find that Republicans rank AOC's chances of being the nominee a lot higher than Democrats do. That's my experience. Emma Jo, what would you like to discuss regarding the president's many comments there?
That's the Republican dream.
Yeah, that's part of it.
But, I think that Hugh Hewitt, and God forbid, no disrespect, because he's a legend. But I think that he said something, that was what I keyed in on, something that he said, actually. And Trump didn't catch it, which I'm surprised by, because typically Trump is very sharp on this and will catch it. But Hugh Hewitt was talking about the realignment, which I definitely think that there is one. And he was talking about how in order for the realignment to sustain itself, it has to be moderate. And then went on to talk about how Trump won 7 out of 7 swing states. And I found Hugh Hewitt actually maybe contradicted himself there, because my opinion is that MAGA is totally moderate. I don't think that it's actually very ideological at all. And we just got off a whole conversation about how it's bringing in the MAHA moms, and that's not like a radical right-wing party. And I don't think that in any definition of radical right-wing MAGA clicks. I think first of all, it's non-ideological, and second of all, I think that the establishment parties are definitely more radical than MAGA. I think free trade, the concept of free trade as it was and as our country has been experiencing it since the 90s, is pretty radical. That's pretty radical. I also think that our immigration policy is quite radical. MAGA is trying to moderate the immigration and economic policies of this country, which are the main MAGA policies. So to call it not moderate, I just thought that was kind of off. And I wish that Trump had caught that, because I think that case should be made over and over again. I think it's actually a very middle of the road and very sensible, and for the most part, pretty common sense for most people. Like you said, 7 out of 7 swing states. I don't get where it's radical. I would love for somebody to explain that to me like I'm 5.
All right, Brian.
What I would look to is, one point he made, Emma, was like talking about the realignment, and that didn't work under Nixon. The one thing I would say that Trump and the administration is in danger of is that overreach, because those pendulums, remember, always swing, one way or the other when there's overreach. I think the Democrats overreached with a lot of the agenda items that they had going into the presidential election. Absolutely. I liked what Rahm Emanuel said. We should be thinking a lot more about the classroom than the bathroom. I think they got wrapped around a wheel on something that was a much smaller issue, minor issue to the American people that were dealing with real kitchen table issues. So it's that overreach is what I would be careful about, because remember, in 2018, when Trump lost so many seats in the House in 2018, remember that? Because that was an issue, was they were reacting to his agenda. And something you said, Emma, a bit ago, was it would really be nice, actually, to hear the logic and the thinking and the plan about tariffs and that monetary policy, because I think then people could be more confident in that. But the more the market is unstable, and the more that you actually have everyday Americans and their 401ks being hit, what that cause and effect is going to be on the moderate or, by the way, not so moderate Republicans that are running in the midterms in the House. That is where the report card comes in. So, I would just be careful with that. And he needs to be a lot more clear. I mean, from a president that has the ability to say a couple of words and shift an entire market during the day. Have you noticed that? He could say one thing about, we're in conversation, we're going to be in conversations with China, and then the market reacts positively. So he has a lot of power to be able to do this, but we just have to think about the American pocketbook, everyday Americans, those kitchen table issues, the rising cost of goods. And, that's what happened before, because we still had a period teetering on inflation as Biden was closing out his term. So I think he's looking to shift blame like he did last week when he talked about, he inherited this from Biden and, that was the issue. No, it's actually forward-looking policies like the tariff policy that are going to bring about this instability. And as Jerome Powell said today, that stagflation that he's so worried about.
Well, I'm following what you're saying the whole way, except I get I mean, I think what he's doing is an extremely aggressive, perhaps, but nonetheless, a huge effort to actually address kitchen table issues, and not only address them, but address them generationally. Like what he's doing, what are the tariffs for? It's not for fun. It's not for the tweets. It's for rerouting the direction of global commerce toward the West. That's ultimately, I think, the vision here, and he's swinging for the fences to accomplish that. Obviously, I think that maybe there could be improvement on messaging as to what exactly the plan is and how this is really a really long-term vision and what it'll entail. But he is erratic or not focused on kitchen table issues. I mean, I don't see the Democrats very focused on kitchen table issues, not as focused as trying to take on Asia.
Well, I think that the comment that he made with regards to that Americans have to be prepared for a period, of it's going to be tough for a period of time. The question is, how much patience will the American people have, as they see both the cost of goods, but also their 401ks hit, and those Republicans in the midterm are the ones that are going to take it on the chin and hear about it. So how long do you get into that before, how long is the pain? I mean, President Trump talked about consumption, but I think that's a different for each American family, right? As far as how they approach consumption as a family, and his sort of top. I mean, Mark, I know you covered this in the morning meeting earlier, but I think they should give him better analogies on what to be able to expect from this economy that he says he adopted. But he could certainly bring out a more cohesive and, just like you said, is focused on the communications and focus on what the plan is so that people can feel comfortable with it. But I think instead it's just a wait and see, and this teetering that goes about in the stock market every day. And you just have people hitting refresh on their computers or their iPhones, watching their portfolios of 401ks that they work so hard for. And again, I think these Republicans that are in jeopardy in the midterm, I think there's going to be some speaking up. Right now, I have never seen more alignment. And it is a movement that you said, Emma. I think that this is a movement that he's created. You can't take that away from him. It is a movement. But it's like, what is he going to do with this movement? And, when are Republicans going to have to start, they're bringing their voices to the table and making them louder, if things don't turn in their favor, and then we're headed towards next November.
Yeah. The one riddle the Democrats have never solved, which is, if Donald Trump is so horrible, how did he win twice?
Well, I think the Democrats kind of this is also something that I was just thinking about while we're talking, and it's like, I'm sorry, what have the Democrats talked about in the last 3 months that has been about the economy or about?
Well, they're talking about social
security, life other than
Medicare.
Traveling to El Salvador.
Yeah, they're talking about Social Security, Medicare. All right, there's a bunch of other Trump sound bites I want to play, and there's some Bernie Sanders sound, but we're over time to go to the community here. So, Len, welcome in. Thank you for joining. I've got a soreness in my shoulder I want to get to, but first, tell us where you are, and what's on your mind, and then we'll get to my shoulder.
I'm an oncologist, not an orthopedic surgeon, and I'm in the middle of the Chattahoochee Forest in North Georgia.
All right.
I have a home up here in Atlanta. I'll be quick.
All right. No, but Len, if we were on a deserted island like Gilligan's Island and I had a hurt shoulder, you wouldn't tell me what your specialty was. You would treat me. So
maybe. Maybe
That's all
not.
I'm saying.
Depends
Yeah.
on the day. I listen
Yeah.
to you all the time. I respect
sir.
you. I'll do my best.
All right. Very grateful to have you here. I'll see someone else about the shoulder. Tell us what's on your mind.
I'm going to try to be very concise because there's so many topics. I got to tell you, I restarted my blog literally yesterday on Substack. I did it for 20 years when I was with the American Cancer Society. I restarted it because of the MAHA movement. So it's obviously a source of great information. Maybe tomorrow I'll read. I did a commentary a couple months ago that never got published about Robert Kennedy, and that allowed me to be more expressive, shall we say, of my thinking. But Emma, I respect you all a great deal. And by the way, living in North Georgia, I have learned a lot and a lot of respect. And Mark, listening to you and my neighbors up here in engagement about understanding. And I appreciate it. And it's actually changed some of my philosophy. But here's the point. When I was with the society, COVID was just starting. And I was literally in charge of the national response to patients and how we ran our organization outwardly facing. I sat there with folks trying to figure out what the damage was going to be. We saw information coming out of China, including videos of young physicians dying. And we had to make decisions. And the revisionism that is going on today without the awareness of what we were literally facing and the advice we had to give on the fly it's painful for me, because I think we still made the right decisions. The impact was immense. Fortunately, I think the vaccines came along, and I will tell you, just like Brian, my wife, who's a physician, who's at Emory as a gynecologist, literally spent 5 days almost dying, not almost dying in the ICU at Emory. And I had to talk to her at 2:00 in the morning on the telephone, and she had been fully vaccinated, but somebody came in, and with all the masks and everything else, she got ill. So it's personal. And my daughter was an ICU nurse who was attacked as they were trying to intubate people because they said COVID was a lie.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have a better understanding of what happened. Meanwhile, as to MAHA, I agree. Kennedy's fundamental premise is good.
Len, hold on before you move off COVID. You said we did the right thing. We did the right thing based on what we knew at the time, or even based on what we subsequently learned. We did the right thing.
We were faced with no information, Mark. It was a pandemic. 50 million people died in the 1910 pandemic.
Yeah.
And we were facing huge numbers.
So you're saying, just to be clear, you're saying based on what we knew at the time, it was not an unreasonable set of decisions.
Correct. I don't want to get involved in the children because I made no opinions regarding children. I had nothing to do with that. But
I'll just say, based on what we now know, I think we should have taken a small fraction of the money that we spent and lost and bought out every hotel in America and created luxury accommodations and said to anyone who was vulnerable or had COVID, go live in these luxury accommodations. That would have been better.
But you didn't know, Mark.
No, I understand.
You didn't know who developed. You had no idea who was going to get COVID next.
I'll tell you what else we didn't do. And I'm amazed at how little attention this still gets. Some governors, like the governor of Massachusetts, a very competent man who was governor at the time, said we need to do tracking and tracing, right? Not one state did effective tracking and tracing, not one. And it's amazing because had we done effective tracking and tracing from the first couple of weeks, which people talked about doing, but no one stood up, then I think my idea would have seemed safe and sensible because it was not spreading and hurting most people, except if they had vulnerabilities, comorbidities, or age. Not everybody, and every loss of life is a tragedy. But way too many people had their lives adversely affected, who didn't need to, because we didn't track and trace and isolate. That's my view.
One day we can have a longer discussion. It won't be tonight, but let me assure you, we had no idea who was going to get it, who was going to die.
I agree.
The loss of life was still substantial.
I agree.
That's what we were facing.
I agree. All right, Emma, Joe, and Brian already talked about COVID. So talk about MAHA, and then we'll respond and we'll get somebody else in. Thank you.
So the bottom line, if you believe that the medical community has not been trying to talk, and I personally, it was a personal message of mine. Again, that time doesn't permit, talking about healthy living, weight loss, exercise, diet, eating a healthy diet. If you think If the world thinks we have not been talking about that, I used to do a radio show back in 1990 and 1989 in Baltimore. That was a topic all the time. And if you think that we haven't tried, that's not correct. I give Kennedy a bully pulpit tada for trying to do it again. But let's understand the natural resistance that's out there, and we need better responses. I personally, I have taken GLP-1 drugs. I'm immensely grateful for that opportunity. But messaging alone is not going to do it. And Mark, one last thing. A couple of weeks ago, you had people on your show who espoused that taking red dye, they lost tremendous amounts of weight. Well, good for them. But we have huge issues in this country in the public health. Blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, heart disease. We have environmental toxins that are out there. Big issues that require incredible attention. So I hope Kennedy's bully pulpit helps. I hope the mom movement helps. I'm not against that. None of us are against it. We've tried so hard. I hope this changes the world. But let's understand that we're in healthcare. We have a luxury today that we didn't have. My dad died from hypertension, diabetes, and obesity, or kidney failure, obesity. I now take medicines that cost pennies that were not available to him. Yeah. We have made progress. Let's not ignore that progress.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Thank
But
you.
I do believe they've popularized and energized and made it inspiring, and taking on big food is something people haven't done.
Don't disagree.
This level. Yeah.
We
yeah.
tried.
Right,
we tried.
Yeah, I know people
Thank
tried, but not at this level. Doctor, thank you. Very glad to have you on. Hope you'll come back. Let's see. Either of you want to comment on anything the doctor said?
No, I think there's one thing that really stuck with me is that we did the best we could do with the information that we had. And I think the doctor was right about that. I don't think, and Mark, something you said, I think looking back now, I mean, of course, think about every time we get to look back in history and be able to apply lessons and what did we learn from that. And of course, it was imperfect, and I agree with Emma that it was imperfect. But I just, spending too much time on that is just like questioning it, is just not productive.
I just,
All right, go ahead, Emma.
Sorry, I just want to address this just for 1 sec. I don't think that there is many reasonable people who look back on that time and say, oh, like people didn't, like people, like everyone knows that we didn't have full information. Everybody knows that it was unfolding live, and that everybody who was trying to make assessments about it and what to do about it was obviously operating on incomplete information. They were working as they went, we didn't know what it was. Of course, everybody knows that. I don't think that many reasonable people, like I said, are debating that, you should have known better. How could you have? Of course. Yeah. I think that that's pretty broadly accepted. What I think that the sticking point is here is that there were adults who are healthy adults, who ran their own households. I'm one of them, who were ordered by the government that I couldn't, for instance, play squash outdoors. They were ordered by the government that they couldn't earn a living. You know how, that's life destroying, losing.
Yeah.
Life destroying. Obviously, it's not death, but I think that people are upset that the government didn't let you make a decision as a citizen of the United States whether you were going to take a risk, I guess.
Yeah.
And people take risks to work all the time.
But the government bars you from taking certain risks all the time. And I will say again, I think it's part of why I've let this go on for so long is because I'm stunned at how unfulsome the debate in America has been about all this stuff. And there's such tension about it and division. And I just say, as I said before, Emma, you say they kept me from playing squash. If you had played squash and died, and that was not impossible.
Mark, the point that I'm making is that it would have been. You live in New York. You know how it is. It's a it's a cement wall that is fence around it.
But we didn't know. And some people in government went too far, but most of them were motivated by uncertainty and fear and ignorance, as opposed to a desire to control people. All right, I'm going to take a minute to introduce Katie Reeves. because many of you are new to the platform. And Katie, one of the great pleasures of my last couple of years is getting to meet Katie, who lives in Wisconsin and was a voice explaining the MAGA movement in 2024 as bold and as clear and clarion bell as anybody I talked to during the whole cycle. But Katie hasn't been here in a while, which makes me sad. Happy to see you. Happy to have you back. Hope you'll come back more. And as I say, Katie has lived in Northern California and Wisconsin. And if living in those two places is not the cause of her vast wisdom, I don't know what is. Katie, welcome in. Please share with us whatever you wish. And thank you for coming.
Well, thanks. I would say that I do watch all the time. I just can't always watch live.
Understood.
But I rarely miss. I'm not even going to touch the COVID stuff because I've got lots of thoughts, but pretty much with Emma on most of this. But one of the things the last Dr. Len said that brought up a question I've had lately is he mentioned about how, for years, obviously the health industry has been saying, diet, exercise and all that. But it's the way that it goes about it. And I think, so years ago, from the point when my son was maybe 2 years old, it was very clear to my husband and I that he was going to be ADD. I mean, it was just absolutely clear. And we did not want to go the route of meds. And so we always looked at what can we do? What can we do? And we looked at research, and I did a lot of research. And one of the things said, exercise. And so we tried to do more exercise, and, and that gives the same stimulant that you get from the drugs. And I could not find any real studies on this. And I finally asked a friend of mine who's in the industry, and I said, why can't I find studies? I can see studies that talk about this or that this med and this med and this med. Where are the studies about how exercise affects ADD kids? And she said, well, why would there be studies? Who's funding it? The drug companies aren't funding it. They're actively not funding it. And so I feel like two worlds have collided lately, where I've watched the Trump administration hold off funds going to these universities. And a lot of funds are going to research. I'm like, well, wait a minute. If all these funds are coming from the federal government going to the universities, why aren't they funding this kind of stuff? Isn't this the kind of stuff they should be funding? And I don't know what the answer to that is, but I was just really curious.
Yeah, great question. Brian, and then Emma Jo.
Yeah, I mean, look, I said that earlier. I really agree with what Katie just said, because, I think there's just been a real void there in the approach. And, I think that's what we're coming to find out. And I actually think that's Emma, you and I agreed about this earlier, but I think that's why there's a lot of people that associate and find a lot of credibility with MAHA, is because of the lack of, right? It's been a real void. And, I think the combination between, healthcare insurance companies and the quagmire that I talked about earlier, it's just, again, I don't know that anyone's having a good experience. If someone's having a great experience and have gotten the right messages from the industry, the healthcare industry, then they ought to talk about it more, because I never hear it.
Emma Jo.
Yeah, I don't, honestly, this isn't my field. I don't know much about it. It's something that I observe. And the truth is, I mean, I definitely am not opposed to Western medicine and the R&D done by Big Pharma. I think is I mean, we live in the best moment in history because of that. I don't think that that's debatable. I just I 100% agree with the point that you're making, Katie, where it's well, there's tons of research that's very productive, but then there's also a lot of research that isn't done because there's no incentive. And that is the law of physics, right? It's we operate based on incentives. And if there isn't any incentive, nobody is getting paid by your son, going out and jogging or playing soccer. So the research wouldn't be conducted. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the federal government ought to do that research that doesn't have an incentive attached to it. Ostensibly, that's why tax dollars would fund research as opposed to private companies. But I mean, the government, I don't think that, it's shocking to anybody in this chat that the government doesn't always have organized priorities or clarity in what they're actually doing. It's disappointing, but I 100% agree. It's yeah, That's literally exactly what we would want our government funded studies looking at, is something like that. And that would probably save people tons of money and increase their quality of life. I mean, yeah, those drugs are tough. They're really tough. They're hard to take. And it's very unfortunate to have to be in that position. If you could remedy your ADD with running, I mean, that would be a huge game changer for so many.
Yeah, and then and even more specific. So run in the morning, run in the evening. Like what there's so many different ways you can look at it, or
huge.
There's gotta be
it's very disappointing that this stuff. And I mean, ADD, it's like it's exploding. You have millions of children that are affected by it. ADD and autism.
Yeah.
And millions of children that are on drugs. That if there's another solution, let's find it.
Yeah, well, maybe we're answering the question, aren't we?
Yeah. Katie, very grateful to you for coming back. Glad you could make time to be join us live, and hope to see you soon. And I could say the only thing more painful for people in Wisconsin than the Bucks losing is to lose to a team from Indiana. Losing to Indiana is very painful. Very painful.
Very painful.
Yeah. Thank you for joining. You can never go wrong if you're talking to someone from Wisconsin, talking sports or what they like about their neighborhood tavern. It's just everybody. You're on safe ground. Emma Jo, conservative commentator, some call you, and Brian. Thank you both for joining. Love having you on. Very grateful to you, and hope you'll come back regularly. Thank you. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Sean, Dan, and I look for my Substack coming soon with a bunch of more information about upcoming things. Noah, is there anything else I need to tell them now, or can we just end the program?
Moynihan at 7 o'clock tonight.
Oh, right,
tomorrow
right
night,
now.
tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. Look at my Substack for information. But tomorrow night, 3 shows. Morning meeting at 9, 6 o'clock this show, and then 7 o'clock Michael Moynihan Report. Thank you for watching. Have a great evening. Again, thanks to Brian and Emma Jo. And there's Michael Moynihan, a program debut tomorrow night, conversation about free speech that they did in the Village, already recorded, but debuting tomorrow night. Thank you for joining. I'll see you at 9 a.m.